next number after the, what is it called? That would be the next number.
Oh, okay, because you're looking at, oh, okay,
Yeah.
so they already have a number to vote.
All right.
Yeah.
Welcome to the Board of Selectmen's meeting for Monday, January 6, 2020. Roll call, please.
Select Chair, Ms. Hart.
Excused.
Select Vice Chair, Mr. Kishka.
Here.
Selectman Mr. Inlet.
Here.
Selectman Mr. Talion.
Here.
Here.
Selectman Mr. Blinn.
Excused.
And note for the record, Town Manager Mr. Pearson is here.
And Martha.
Thank you.
And our town
Can we
clerk.
rise for the Pledge of
And
Allegiance?
also note for the record, Town Clerk Martha Fowler is here.
Thank you.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. I'll entertain a motion for the approval of the minutes of December 30th, 2019.
I'll make a motion that we approve the December 30th, 2019 minutes.
And for
I'll
discussion?
I'll second it with the change that I called Beth.
Yes.
That I got into a car accident, so I didn't make the meeting, so
Yeah, so,
that's
so-
excused.
so please change the absent on Mr. Renlet to excused. Is there any, are there any other issues with the minutes? All those in favor, say aye.
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 Actually, you can't say aye. You weren't here.
Then if I abstain, then
It's still
Gotta do
still
them
two.
next week.
It's still
Is that
two.
You need to.
2-1,
2-1. Yeah, I'll abstain.
2-0-1.
So 201.
201.
Okay, is there any public comment? I see there is none. The first thing on the agenda, I open the public hearing to consider a grant in the amount of $368,000 at 6:33. Is there any discussion on the issue? Anyone from the public? We have a motion to accept the grant.
You gotta close the public hearing.
All right, we'll close the public hearing. And can I entertain a motion to accept the grant?
Make a motion to accept the grant from the Hampshire Department of Environmental Services in the amount of $368,000 for the potable water system.
Second.
It is motioned and seconded. Any discussion? There is none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Abstain? Against? So it passes 3-0-0.
We wanna do the swearing in first, though.
Okay, so we're going to deviate from the agenda, and we are going to swear in our new fire chief.
Yes. So I wanted to introduce to the community Fire Chief Chris Knutson, and I'd like him to come up to the microphone and tell not only the people here, but the people at home who he is, where he's from, and, his background. So thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me here tonight, and everybody at home, thank you for watching. My name's Chris Knutson. It's my 24th year in public safety. I come from right outside the Great Smoky Mountains National Park in East Tennessee. So the town that where I come from, I was currently serving the position of captain over training and continuing education, where I filled that role since 2007. So it's a busy little town. We have about 12 million visitors come through there a year. So it's, we stay pretty busy. We have a diverse amount of topics and responsibilities that I'm going to be able to bring here to this town as well. So I appreciate this opportunity and the trust that you all have put in me to lead a already great department.
Okay, and we have the town clerk here to swear him in.
I, Chris Knutson,
Do solemnly and sincerely swear
do solemnly and sincerely swear
and affirm that I will bear faith
and affirm that I'll bear faith
and true allegiance to the United States of America
and true allegiance to the United States of America
and to the state of New Hampshire,
and to the state of New Hampshire,
and will support the Constitution thereof.
and will support the Constitution thereof.
So help me God.
So help me God.
I state your name.
I, Chris Knutson,
do solemnly and sincerely swear and affirm
do solemnly and sincerely swear and affirm
that I will faithfully and impartially discharge
that I will faithfully and partially discharge
and perform all the duties incumbent upon me
and perform all the duties incumbent on me
as Fire Chief of the Town of Plaistow,
as Fire Chief of the Town of Plaistow,
according to the best of my abilities,
according to the best of my abilities,
agreeable to the rules and regulations
agreeable to the rules and regulations
of this Constitution
of this Constitution
and the laws of the state of New Hampshire,
and the laws of the state of New Hampshire.
so help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations.
Chris, why don't you come around and just meet the Board of Selectmen? Some of them you've met before, some of them you haven't.
Congratulations.
Chris, congratulations. Welcome to Plaistow.
Yes, we just met. Congratulations. Good luck. All right, y'all can go to training now, I guess. Right.
They seem like a really nice couple.
You don't see that anymore.
And that's yours. Okay, we'll see you later.
Oh, it's not even there
Thank you
yet.
for coming.
I gotta call the insurance company. No, I got a claim and everything.
Thank you, Martha.
And next on the agenda is warrant article for landfill closure work. We had a discussion on this last week. I know you weren't here, Steve, and there's only two of us that were.
You want me to speak on that?
Yes, please, because I have some
So
questions too.
at the last meeting, we had a presentation from Eric Steinhauser from a company called Sanborn Head, and it was related to the settling of the Plaistow landfill up on Old County Road. And the discussion was with a written presentation on what the cost might be to start the process for the engineering, the design, and the permitting. And it's it has to, you can't do anything to it until you get the proper permits from the state of New Hampshire. And at the last meeting, the board wanted a warrant article drafted for that, and it was to draft it for $150,000, which is here tonight. And so it's for the board's consideration if you want to take an affirmative vote to place that on the ballot for $150,000, which will get the process rolling for the design, engineering, and permitting for the landfill closure. So that's what the board asked me to do at the last meeting, and you have that before you tonight. So it's up to the board if you want to take a vote to add it as a warrant article or not. Now, the way that I was instructed to write it was that the withdrawal would be from the general fund, unassigned fund balance, and so that there would be no amount raised by new taxation. So it's not something that would cause any concern about this money causing taxes to go up. It's going to be taken out of the general fund, unreserved fund balance, along with several other warrant articles. So that's what the board asked me to do, and that's before you tonight for you to take action if you choose to do that.
And I believe that 150,000 wasn't the total.
No.
It was 200?
It was 200, and I'd rather start with the 150, see how far we get. Those were estimates on their half. I think 150 will get us going, and we'll have more information on what the true cost will be. But this is all this is prior to bidding for the actual construction. So this does not include the construction. This is what it takes to get a site permitted to fix the cap that has settled over 30 years. So if you really look at the amount of money and spread it out over 30 years, and then if you do it now and you don't do it for another 30, it's not terribly large, but the day comes when you have to do it. If we don't do it this year, it's going to be the following year.
Do you know what entails the settling? Do they have to strip it off, and what do you know what they do, Mark?
Yeah,
Do you know
yeah,
offhand?
so what
I don't
they-
mean to,
Yeah, so what they do is they take a measurement, a current measurement, and they compare it against the previous measurements, because that's all been documented. And then they look at the type of cap, and they look to see what's caused it to settle and what's underneath it, because they'll take some core samples. And then they'll come up with a plan so that it's a rolling hill up there, so that it's not, it's cut puddling now because it's settled so much, to make it so that the water sheds off of there in a controlled fashion, and that there's no pollution going off-site because it's a clay barrier. So it's real technical, but they're filling in strategically the gaps so that the water goes back to rolling off, and of course you have grass, and they cut the grass, and it's like a big field. So they really don't know, these people here don't know actually what's buried there, but they can guess with taking some samples. But things settle at different rates. If you ever buried stumps in your yard and 20 years later you have something that's, it depends on what you put there and how good it was compacted and so forth. So it's a guess.
Plus, I would assume that the regulations that have really been expanded, that we have to comply with, that we didn't have to comply 30 years ago.
As Eric Steinhauser said at the last meeting, that the regulations are different now than they were 5 years ago, or 10 years ago, or 30 years ago, and the regulations will get differently, will become different going forward. There's no optimum time to do it, and of course, we know that costs go up almost annually. So, it's been here for a while, we've all known about it, and we need to take action to correct it, because it's never gonna go away.
Right. And I believe that you made a comment about, what if we were to remove all of the waste and haul it out of there, so we would put that land back into use?
Which is the only other option, but.
And the cost, I thought that he was talking $10 or $11 million to do that at
we
the
don't
current
have.
rate. Right.
And that could be something with this scope of work that we could ask them to do if the board was interested in that.
Yeah. That's a lot of money.
Probably not likely,
lot
but
of
it'd be nice to have a
decompo-
number.
And then the question that Eric made was, where would you send it? Because
There's
places,
cost- there's cost.
Massachusetts is about the only place, and they're running out of spots.
It's cost to put it into a vault. They call it a lined vault, and there's one in Rochester called
Yeah.
Turnkey, and there's one in Bethlehem, New Hampshire. But, yeah, there's costs, and the vaults are starting to fill up, and that's a big, big project, People buy the vault space based on what they're gonna bring in there. So I'm sure that we could figure it out. We could ask them with the scope of work, if that's an option that a majority of the board wants to do, we can ask them. But it's definitely gonna be in the millions. So you're talking hundreds of thousands versus millions.
yeah, that's a huge undertaking, because, I mean, that, they were putting trash there for many, many years, decades. So, I mean, that, probably cheaper to have it, refix the cap.
Yeah.
I'll make a motion that we place Article P 2013 to the warrant, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $150,000 for engineering services for the preliminary design and permitting through bidding to address the post-closure settlement of the town of Plaistow landfill located at 37 Old County Road, withdraw from the general fund. Total appropriation $150,000, withdraw from the general fund, unassigned fund balance $150,000. No amount to be raised by new taxation.
Second the motion?
All right, it's discussion. I have one question. Is there still going to be an RFP to, which engineering firm is actually going to do this work? Because
Yes.
last week, it was Dorman Whittier, I believe?
No, it was Normandow. We've
Normandow, okay.
contracted Normandow and Associates that has contracted with Sanborn Head,
Right.
which we already appropriated some previous dollars to get them to get us this report for this time. So we would, if this money is appropriated, then we would put out an RFP for this, so then it would be open to everybody. And then we would take, you could review the results of the bidding and then decide on who it is.
So this number is actually just a cap.
This is the funding so that you can go to the next step. No decisions have been made, but this is what, this will get us to the next step through the bidding.
Yeah, that's all I want to clarify. Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Against? Abstain? Passes 3-0-0. Warrant article for the elderly and disabled tax relief. And I guess we already have it in our information on the voter's guide, which we'll be talking about the voter's guide next.
No, it's the warrant article for elderly and disabled tax relief.
Yes. And I think right now we're just voting on whether we're going to put this on the.
Yeah, we have it. Beth sent it to us
Yep,
in an email.
yep.
And I believe these were all the questions that Francine had sent to Barbara.
Yes,
Her
I've already seen
responses.
those.
My personal belief is that, or how I feel is that, get it on the warrant article, and then you can discuss how a committee is going to be set up, how, who's going to be on it. I know, and nothing against Barbara or anybody, but I think the future board should, I know how many individuals to qualify, but to set the committee up, whether it's going to be the board, Lori, the town manager. That's something for the board in March to do. I mean, the questions were good, but this is stuff that can be talked out. I mean, like you said, let's just get this on the warrant article and then deal with it after, it's on there, because it's all voluntary money. It's not coming from the town, so.
And I think that's what I've said before, is we don't know all the details yet. We have to work those out, and they're important details, and we're not going to be able to get all that stuff done before. And actually, those would be kind of a moot point if it doesn't pass anyway. If it wasn't to pass, then I don't see why it wouldn't, but this is just an opportunity for people in our community that are generous. If they want to help out, they have the opportunity and a vehicle to do so.
Mark, is this going to be the wording for the warrant article?
So that was turned in by Barbara, and I believe that she did some research, and that was all vetted until this point, so it would be the same language, yes.
Okay. I'll make a motion, we post for the warrant article PXX to be determined after, which shall the town vote to establish a town elderly and disabled tax relief expendable trust fund per RSA 3119A for the express purpose of depositing any voluntary donations to the fund. Said fund shall be used to defray the real estate taxes of elderly and disabled Plaistow residents of low income. Further, to name the Board of Selectmen as agents to the expandable, is it going to be an expandable trust fund or an expandable fund, or?
As agents to expend from said fund.
Okay.
I second the motion.
Okay, there is a motion and a second. Any other discussion? And I think there's probably, when we do the voter's guide, that needs to be expanded a little more to explain, because this is an unusual warrant article compared to others we've had in the past. And moving forward, it'll depend on state laws and things like that, which are allowed here in our state, and future legislative decisions that may or may not be made in the upcoming year. But like Steve says, you have to start it somewhere. This just enables the fund to be created so that we can work out the details later. And I would anticipate we'll probably have some kind of a board, including the selectmen, that would have a determination on a charter determining what those guidelines are ahead of time, and then a kind of a review to see who's eligible and not, like it's been done in other communities. So that's all to be worked out. Okay.
Julian, the copy of the voter's guide we have here is an old copy.
Okay.
I'll have to send a copy to everybody on the board. One of the big changes was a recommendation by Sam Confesco to Cafiso, sorry.
Excuse me, you had a motion and a second, and you had no vote.
Oh, no vote. We had no vote. We had to vote for
Thought you
that.
were, you're
No,
not.
he
referring to this-
seems to be
Okay.
going on to
Go
a
ahead.
different subject.
Yep.
Okay,
Go ahead.
then, all those in favor say aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Against, abstain,
Sorry.
passes 3-0-0.
I just got
Now
lost.
continue.
Totally forgot.
I thought maybe you were leading to something
No,
to this.
no. I was on to the next topic. So
Next on the,
Sam made the recommendations that we try to have the verbiage as consistent as possible, and he felt that saying that something had zero tax impact kind of swayed things. So he first was saying that we shouldn't be talking about it inside of the explanations, and when I reviewed all the explanations, there is no talk about taxes in the explanations. It just explains it very vanilla. So what the compromise was to add a line. Notice on page, which one is it? On page 4, for example, Article P2007, you have the total appropriation line, which is the amount that the motion, the warrant is asking for. And then you have that you're withdrawing it from some fund, and then you have a balance of 0. So you're saying no amount to be raised by taxation. So on any other money warrant, we would just include that total appropriation line underneath the warrant. So for example, on the very next page, page 5 rather, P2009, right under after the words previous established, you'd have a line that would say total appropriation $100,000. So that would be, it would be consistent with the other ones that have an appropriation and then some other kind of funding.
It already says that in my copy.
What's that?
It already says that in my copy.
You must have another, you have
Oh,
a
because I
different
had
copy.
it printed out
Yeah, you
Friday.
have a different copy. This one here is old, so it
yeah,
doesn't
just make
have
them
it.
all consistent, that's all.
Yeah, that's all.
So
Sounds good.
to that end,
Yes.
on 07, P20-07.
Yep.
Then you should add the balance in that fund, because that's a fund that's already established. So that should be consistent with P2009, to give the balance that's in the fund.
They should all have.
Do we know those?
Yeah, we know those.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool.
And then you'd have to add it on the next one, P2008.
Yep.
Then
So it'd be the total appropriation line, and the balance of the fund is
Right.
X amount of dollars.
Yep, yep. I think
Okay.
that's the only two.
Good. So is,
05. Oh, it has it there.
yeah,
Got it.
is it my understanding that when the Budget Committee meets tomorrow, which they'll be looking at these warrants, only the ones that have money in them, they are making recommendations on?
Yes.
So any other warrant article is not really a,
If it's not related to, some kind of fiscal appropriation, then.
Okay, good.
They don't.
Thank you.
vote on it.
thank you. Thank you, Julian.
So the trustee of the trust funds can get you the balance of all of those funds as of December 31st.
Okay.
Okay, operating water budget, page 3. Operating budget, water department.
Yep.
I'm looking for there, where it basically says totaling 157,000, and then the operating budget will still be 157,000, which is rather confusing. And it doesn't really say where the money's coming from. Are you following? It's kind of difficult to understand what it's actually saying.
Does it help in the explanation, Julian?
But the explanation doesn't show up on the ballot.
Oh, correct, correct,
And if
correct.
people don't look at the explanation, if I just look at that, I'm saying, what am I voting for?
So the operating budget shall be the default budget, or the default budget, which is X amount of dollars, would be the operating budget?
No,
It almost makes you think like, why am I even voting on this?
I actually understand the point now that I look at it, because the other ones below, like P 2004 has, total appropriation. So we could add the line of total appropriation to that, and where it would come from, it's gonna come from the Water Department fund.
It's existing.
That exists. So it's just gonna show where it's coming from.
Yeah.
Now, going back to the operating budget, there is no fund for that, because that's being totally raised by taxation.
Yeah.
So,
Right.
so you can't put that one with one, but you can do it with two. So if that provides some clarity to the voters on where that fund is, then we could add that to
Source.
that.
So add total appropriations,
Right.
150,444.
Right.
And withdraw from the existing water department fund,
Exactly.
zero taxation.
Right, and you can
Same
call,
thing.
you can call Greg Colby, and he'll give you the exact balance of that fund.
Because what
And-
happens, it makes you think that it's coming from the operating
Right.
fund.
Where's it coming from?
Right,
Yeah, no, that's a good question.
And that probably can also have that, no amount to be raised by new taxation, because that is not raised by taxation, that's just money in
By
a fund.
usage.
Existing fund.
Correct.
Yeah.
And so I think that doing that to the article is consistent with the other articles, and it would provide an explanation to the people, so they don't confuse that they're raising and appropriating some tax dollars.
Yeah.
So no amount to be raised by new taxation.
Yeah, 'cause this
Correct.
isn't coming from the operating budget
Correct.
or the
Correct.
fund. It's
That's
coming
correct.
from a totally different enterprise fund that we
Correct.
started last year.
Right, and we should call it the enterprise fund, because that's what it is, right?
Yeah, we probably should do that, because I think people now are accustomed at the water meetings that we're calling it the enterprise fund.
Enterprise fund.
And it has to be very clearly distinguished from our operating budget, because people are voting on, is it coming out of our operating budget, which is my taxes?
Right.
Or is it coming out of the fund, which is water fees?
Correct.
And that's a big deal.
Yeah, it is a big deal.
So I think, Greg, maybe you should go through all of them, because the '08, it's the same thing, because, if you're gonna put balances of funds,
Right.
so such payment to be withdrawn from the expendable trust fund, highway department, with the balance coming from the impact fees,
Yep.
with the balance of the impact fees,
Yeah.
so people know.
Below it, yep.
So, I mean, just go through all of them, whatever's a balance, get it from, like Mark said, get it from Greg.
Yep. Good. Thank you.
P 2002, we have a comment on the explanation part.
2002, let's see here.
At the end of the explanation, it says, if Article P 20 fails, that is, does not get a majority of yes votes, the default amount is prescribed by state statute. And you might make a better explanation, is based on last year's budget. Because do the regular, everyday person know what the state statute says?
Say one more
Think so.
time, I'm
I'm just
missing-
saying, just to make it a little bit better.
But,
That It just says the default amount is prescribed by state statute.
but it's not last
It's
year's
not,
budget.
you can't put last year's budget, because it's only contractual, it's only that anything that everything else is left out.
It's the,
Like, Mark, you
Right,
can.
so,
It's a
so.
default budget.
Based on
it's-
something.
It's been a moving target, because every year they seem to go in legislatively and tweak the default, what you can and what you can't
Right.
include. So I think that sticking with that language about state statute, because it's changing every
Right.
year, is to stick with that, because it reverts back to state statute on what you can include and what you can't.
Right, but it's still based
Yeah,
on
when
whatever
you-
the budget was
if
last
you're-
year.
If you're,
Yeah.
what you're trying to say is it's based on last year's budget,
And there's adjustments up or down depending on what's allowed. Yeah.
but it's going to be controversial.
Yeah,
right, there's a lot of adjustments that we're either bound by through contracts or through CDAs or whatever. And those were not in last year's budget. Those are typically increases.
Correct. Right. They're outside of last year's budget.
all right, so it's consensus of the board, leave it as is?
Yeah.
That's good by me. All right, let's see. The Public Works Facility Garage. In the explanation, it doesn't really say why we need it. Like, for instance, it might say something that allows us to buy and store enough salt for the following year, which has always been brought up of why we need it. One reason, besides moving it from its current bad location, that the size was to accommodate the amount of salt we need, so we could buy enough for the winter.
It says it in the last paragraph.
Yeah.
Phase 3 involves the construction of a new
Yep.
salt shed and solar panels.
But it doesn't say why we're doing it. It doesn't say, well, why do we need a new salt shed? Well, we know what the location is, but it doesn't say, well, it allows us to do economical things like purchase at the low price or something like that.
I think by
Yeah.
put, go ahead. Yeah, I know
I
where I'm
was,
going
I
with
was
this.
gonna, I
Or
was
what
gonna
would-
just say that basically you had a salt shed before.
Yeah.
And it's not appropriate anymore. It's falling apart.
We know that. That's one reason.
Okay, so basically, you can put the need for a new salt shed was required.
Yes.
But it's not the fact that we're getting a salt shed so we can buy more salt. We're getting a salt shed because we need a place that we can store the salt that we purchase. And the added advantage is that we can draw power off it from the solar panels.
Just for clarification, and maybe you weren't aware of this, one of the reasons why we sized it for the size and the tonnage is to actually buy the salt in the off-season because it's at a cheaper rate,
And to keep it completely undercover.
and to keep it under
Yeah,
So
cover.
you're purchasing the salt early.
Early and off-season, and it's inside, and it's all set, because you pay more in this weather.
In the weather.
Currently, and you may not know this, currently, they can't keep the adequate amount of salt and sand that they need for the winter, so they have to have the trucks coming in while they're actually taking it out. So there is a relationship with the size of that building and to build that structure with the doors to actually save the town money by purchasing the salt during the summer months and not during the winter months.
Yeah, it's not a one-for-one replacement of one building location here, just
No.
replacing it over here, that it's new and not falling
There was
apart.
more thought
Much
about
larger.
It's also, it's new size versus the solar panels are to be able to pay the electric bills for the facilities,
Okay.
which reduces the operating costs.
So to be
Yeah.
consistent with
Yeah.
all these voter guides, I think by adding in, we need, I think as Greg had said at the beginning, we're trying to stay vanilla,
Yeah.
neutral. I think by adding the suggestion that you made, it's kind of pushing the voter to vote for it, because, we need a new one to contain the salt, what I read, I think this is totally fine, without swaying the voter. I mean, this is what the intent, we don't want that intent.
True.
I know we do this every year.
I know.
Yes. And beat it with a dead horse, but I think this is real, very neutral.
Right. Your opinion, Greg?
I mean, now that I'm hearing it, I actually agree, because we really worked really, really hard to take any benefits out of these and make it as vanilla as we possibly could. So unless the purpose for this was to build a larger salt or to increase the size of the salt shed, that's not part of the motion.
I think
It's basically to erect a brand-new salt shed.
I think in the past, we were talking about rebuilding the salt shed in its current location, and one of the things was it needed to be bigger. Because at one point, we were going to do that, and then we decided to not do it because we says, well, we're going to have to move this anyway, so why build it there, rebuild it? And that was a discussion previously, that we needed a bigger salt shed.
But the point that I'm making, it's not explained in the warrant that way.
Yeah.
It's basically a vanilla, we need to buy a salt shed, or build a salt shed. That's exactly what the warrant says. So we're only explaining that versus the benefits we're gonna get out of it.
We use the word chocolate.
Okay,
Yeah, chocolate. Versus vanilla.
all right. Okay, we'll leave it as is, that's the consensus. One of the wording at the bottom, the last two lines of the P 20-03 explanation, and it just says the budget is funded through water usage fees rather than property taxes. I was wondering if the budget is funded through water fees and not property taxes is better wording than using the word rather. Because it's not property tax, it's not a rather, well, there's a maybe, it's definitely not taxes.
And not,
Instead of rather than, put and not.
I'm fine with that.
Steve?
Yeah, because that was a concern that I was with somebody on Friday, and he doesn't want to, he's on Kelly Road, and it was one of his biggest concern was that he didn't hook up to Pennachuck, and he does not want to hook up to, he goes, and now am I going to have to pay for everybody else through taxation? And I said, no, not at all, and I explained it to him, but I think by clarifying that,
It's
to say
not.
it will not come from property tax.
And also the line that we're gonna add where it says no amount to be raised from new taxation will help as well.
Right, but when he says water usage fees
Yep.
and not property taxes.
Yeah, because it's definitely a not.
Yes.
And that's a big, important issue to
I
people
agree.
who pay property taxes, anyone.
Yeah, it's a huge concern. I could have thought of a bunch of other ones.
We
but
promised
that
people
was
that
just-
it would not come from property taxes, and we have to keep that word, and we
Right.
have to make sure it's clear. Okay. On the Highway Department Equipment Truck Bed, P20-07. Should we have anything in there, what it costs for a replacement vehicle, or not?
We're not talking about a replacement vehicle, we're talking about a bed.
Yeah, truck bed, instead of purchasing a replacement vehicle, right?
So I don't think there's a need to put in the cost of a truck. It's just my opinion.
Okay. All right,
Well, it is factual that a new truck with all that equipment is gonna be approaching $200,000.
Right, but you really can't say
But we
that.
all also get back to, hey, listen, we're just gonna buy a truck bed instead of purchasing a $200,000 truck.
yeah,
So you're swaying the voters, we don't wanna do
Yeah.
that.
But it's fact.
Well, I know, but a voter's guide, and again,
I don't see factual amounts as swaying a voter. It's, it's factual.
Well,
yeah, it is
we're
factual,
we're
but it's
basically
still-
saying we're going to do this instead of replacing, or instead of replacing the vehicle.
Well, if we don't
We're
do,
saying that, but we're not getting into how much does that really cost.
yeah, if we don't do this, then we're gonna buy a
The average-
$200,000 vehicle.
The average person might look at $50,000 and say, that's enough for a really nice car.
So how about
Right.
you take out the word replacement? Instead of purchasing a new vehicle, the article would instead replace a truck bed and put the existing truck back into service.
But that's exactly the point of this article, is basically to replace the truck bed instead of replacing the whole new vehicle.
I get it.
Yeah.
All right, I'll leave it as is, I guess.
Okay.
I mean, to say something costs $200,000 versus $50,000, we're really making a point. We're trying to sway the person.
Yeah, but you're putting out costs. It's not to sway, it's telling you it's $50,000 or 200.
Yeah, it's like, would you rather me spend $200,000 or would you rather have you spend $50,000?
Well, I'm gonna vote yes for the warrant article because that's what you're saying. Yeah, I don't wanna spend 200, I wanna spend 50.
Right.
Because if you don't have anything there, and people don't know what a truck bed is, the difference between a truck bed and a truck and a new vehicle, or they don't understand that a plow vehicle with all of the attachments to plow the roads costs $200,000. They may not know that. The average person may not know that. And they may say, $50,000 for a truck bed? You can buy a
kidding
new
me?
vehicle for that. Well, yeah, but you can buy a new pickup truck for that. But you can't buy a vehicle that plows with
Right.
a wing and all that, So, you're trying to be fair. Not everybody knows what a truck bed is either.
Do you have to buy all new plow, the plow wing, everything for a new
Everything.
truck? Oh, you do?
Everything comes with the whole thing, yeah. When you trade it in, you don't strip off that equipment because
Different
the
sizes.
new lines and hydraulics and all that stuff, it all comes as a package.
Gotcha.
And it's a state bid. So, you're getting the benefit of the state bid to buy the vehicle, so you're sort of getting like the cruisers, you're getting a state bid.
Okay.
The layperson.
One package.
So
Yeah, the layperson doesn't know how
So-
much these things cost.
if you were to put that into the explanation, you'd have to make it as vanilla as you possibly could make it.
Well, then you could say that the
The cost of a
the cost of
replacement
the bed is
vehicle.
25% of the cost of a new plow truck.
I mean, I wouldn't even have a problem with you putting the dollars, but it'd basically just be a vanilla statement.
It's a vanilla.
It is vanilla.
Well, you're making a percentage.
Well, are you
You're providing a percentage. I'm just saying, you could actually say, cost of a replacement vehicle is estimated at X dollars.
It is.
So just put in parentheses after vehicle, parentheses, 200,000, parentheses,
Approximate, because we don't,
approximate 200,000.
Yeah.
for a new
Yeah.
vehicle. the new full replacement vehicle. Rather than fixing it. It's not swaying, it's just giving people facts to
And don't
decide.
forget, this,
I think it's swaying, but
what you,
You can still say no.
you know, the voter's guide and what you're talking about tonight for the people at home that are listening to this discussion is, the voter's guide is, the people that pick up a voter's guide prior to the voting can get more information so that they can know what they're voting on.
Right.
But in the ballot box, they're not gonna have this explanation.
Correct.
So this is a educational material for them, and what you're trying to do without electioneering.
Right, exactly.
Is trying to give them information so that they can vote, but you're giving them factual information without swaying them one way or the other.
Correct.
So if they're listening, $50,000 instead of spending $200,000.
Yep.
That's what this article's for.
Yeah, the
Right, no,
the
I
ballot
tot-
itself can't have this information on it.
No, I totally understand it, but if I was just, didn't understand the budget process and somebody just walked into the ballot and they said, oh, 250? Oh, I'm going with the 50, yes. You know, so.
Yeah, but they're not gonna
that's-
see that on the warrant. The
We don't have to
warrant-
beat a dead horse, we
yeah.
agreed to
The
the
explanation
approximate
doesn't go on
200,000.
the actual ballot, so they don't see that unless they've researched ahead of time.
It should, but that's another
Yeah, but it doesn't.
discussion to have.
Then it becomes electioneering.
No,
Well, yeah, well,
Does
that's what it's
Concord,
been, that's what's been
does
said.
Concord get to see the
Yeah.
voter's guide before we can
Yeah.
print it out and send it out?
Say that again?
Does Concord get to see the
No.
voter's guide?
No.
Concord
Every-
only sees the warrant article
And it
itself.
is ambiguous because there are other communities that do a voter guide and put a whole lot more information in there than Plaistow is. Plaistow has taken the approach, since I got here, because it was controversial, just as I got here, was they decided to go, they got some legal opinions, and they decided to go with the most conservative approach, which what you're doing now. There are other communities, they put everything on that thing.
and they
it
put
isn't
it
even an
on the
issue.
ballot.
Yeah,
The warrant article?
yeah.
Oh, in the
yeah.
warrant, on the ballot, when you
Yes.
walk in, you see the explanation.
Right,
Really?
Oh, several communities throughout the state of New Hampshire do it.
yeah.
I think voters would love that.
That's how it used to
I
be. Remember
think
voting, and that's
voters-
how it used to be.
Would love that, because now, when you read a lot of these warrants, most people are like, what are they asking for?
They don't pick up this voter guide.
Right.
So the school board's been doing it for, and they still do it, I believe. So
I didn't know that.
Plaistow went with a
I didn't know that
conservative
was,
interpretation. and-
well, I thought it was based on RSA that we could not do
No,
this.
nope, you can
So
put
we
it,
are censoring ourselves.
Yes, that's
that's
effectively.
correct.
Yeah.
Because
Tying both
past-
hands behind your back.
We went the
past
opposite
board
side.
members thought that it was electioneering but when you put vanilla and neutral explanations on the ballot, they have it right there and they can read it. Why? Because nobody goes
Yeah.
gets this.
But as a voter's guide,
We're gonna print up 500 and you're gonna have, 450 left.
Instead of printing it once.
There you go.
as a voter's guide, you have a little more leeway.
Maybe that's something the new board can work on.
Yeah.
You have it on the vote, that's what I'm saying, the voter's guide separately, you have a little more leeway to give more information if you think it's important information. So I have nothing against putting it in the voter's guide.
Well, when we were writing
As
this
long as
up,
you're not saying you should vote this way, you
when
say,
we
these are
were
the facts,
writing
this
this
is
up-
A, this is B.
we got the impression that this was had to be so neutral that you could not sway in any way.
No,
Or provide too much information.
well, if you're talking about,
Basically, based on the warrant, explain the warrant and don't explain anything
well,
else.
if you're talking about on the actual ballot, yes. If you're talking about the voter's
talking
guide,
about
which
the
is
voter's
not
guide.
on the ballot, it's just extra information.
I wish I had known that. I really had. I thought that was the direction that we were going in.
So no, and I totally disagree with you, Julian. If you start swaying voters with a voter guide, then you, as a select person or whoever, you're trying to sway the voters. You think that we should spend 50,000 instead of 200,000. So if you start being more pro for this warrant article, you don't want this one, so it depends on who's writing it up. You want to stay neutral, whether it's in a voter guide or not.
Right.
You don't want to start saying, hey, putting in the whole description of a $200,000 truck, and we're just going to do 50 for a bed. So you want to try to say, even though it's a voter guide, you don't want to start swaying voters.
No, but you can provide information that is neutral that we did not even consider putting in there.
I think
And
that's
this is a great.
great.
And this is a great example of that.
Good
Not
compromise.
putting in a dollar amount because we felt we could not do that, but in actuality, it makes sense to, it neutrally explains what the outcome of voting or not voting for this would happen, and that's what you want in the voter's guide.
You
right?
do, but, and I'll ask you this question, if you walk into into the ballot box to vote, and you see 200,050, who are you gonna vote for?
50,
There you go.
of course.
So now I think you're swaying the voters.
Well,
But I'm good with this, and we can
Okay.
move on. We're beating a dead
Well, I'm
horse.
saying when we vote that we recommend or not recommend, we're swaying voters as well, so. Because I know people go in there and say, oh, 5-0, I'm voting for it, because the selectmen think it's okay. But anything you put in there is
You have
swaying
to-
somebody.
I mean, you have to vote on the
Yeah.
budget.
Yeah.
So where you supposed to put your vote? Back of a napkin?
You know, but,
All right.
well, I've
Good.
done that,
Thank you.
put my notes on there. So I guess it's leave it alone too?
Yep.
No, we put
No, we
approximate
approximate
200,000.
Okay.
200,000, yeah.
No, it's basic information. Okay, so we'll put that in. Oh. I guess I think
Anything
on
else?
the
that you
energy
have?
one, you could put stuff like what the stuff has been used for in the past, but then maybe that's too much. Like what we saved on the library project, what we're gonna save on the LED lighting for the streets. We could put that in there, but maybe that's too much. What do you think?
Which one are you talking about?
12.
12, P
12
20-12.
at the bottom of page 5.
Oh,
It already says it's reducing the town's energy cost.
Okay,
I think if you start becoming more specific, you're swaying the voters.
okay. I have no issue with that. We'll leave it as is then. Then there's the landfill one. Which we already it's already on my
right,
list.
right,
And we just voted to put it on there.
right.
But the explanation doesn't say that it's been there, how, like, for instance, that it's already been there, it's old, it's been there like 30 years.
You know, so what you have, Julian, is you have a draft.
Yeah.
And this is what we have approved so far.
Yeah.
So we had to make those motions to add those on there. You're looking at a draft.
Yeah, you're looking at the explanation. The one I have says, this article would fund required permits for necessary to recap and close the Plaistow landfill located off County Road.
He's looking at a draft that was produced when
The
we,
one that was sent out in email.
right,
Gotcha.
yeah.
And I was just thinking, it should also say that landfill, because it's been there for 30 years, to recap and close.
So I just noticed something that Beth went off of some other copy. So when she tried to pick the next number, and so she picked 2013.
Yep.
But what I've got in front of me is the last one on there was the expendable trust fund for Old Home Day, which was P 2018.
Yeah.
So 2013 is not really.
These numbers
It's a
have to
capital
be,
reserve fund.
these numbers have to be
Yeah.
organized because some of these that are money belong in one part of the
Right,
list.
right. So
And
I'm
others
just
that are
bringing it
not.
up because I think when it was read, it was P 2013. So I want to just make sure that that's not.
The
what
number,
the intent
the
of
number will
board
be
was.
appropriate to what,
Landfill, cover the
For
landfill?
landfill, yeah. As long as you're,
says
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right, it wasn't
Well,
XX.
so for the minutes purposes, we shouldn't go by the number, we should go by the title, so it's not confusing.
right, right. So are you guys okay with that? You don't have to do any motion or anything?
No, just that,
go with that.
Oh, that was for the engineering permitting.
Correct,
Yes.
correct.
No, I think just by consensus, just change it to XX, the same as the
Right.
other one, the elderly.
elderly, right, that one
Right.
has,
The end has XX, so just put
Correct.
XX and not 13.
yeah.
Okay,
Good catch.
okay.
Now, the landfill is kind of closed already, isn't it? We don't add any more to that landfill, except for the burning stuff in the back.
But those, the post-closure,
Yeah.
that's the term, post-closure.
Well, I was looking at your explanation, you says necessary to recap and close. It's already closed.
That's a draft.
Well.
I know, I'm saying we're gonna work on that,
We can take the closeout,
yeah.
yeah. That I sent to Greg, I never heard back from him. I thought he was
Yeah,
gonna
and then
change,
last meeting I asked
change
I left all-
wording for that.
Yeah.
So I have not had, he's going to be in the office?
Yeah, but you're talking about explanation.
Yeah.
Yes, we're talking about the explanation.
So that doesn't have to go to Greg for
No,
explanation.
no, I'm not talking about the actual warrant part, yeah,
The explanation, you know,
Yeah.
it's already closed.
right,
So maybe that's just a poor choice of words. It's
Correct.
to fix the cap.
Yeah.
right.
That's better than saying closing, fix the cap.
Got it.
Or repair is another word to use.
Right.
Mark, no problems with four-wheelers up there or anything, lighting it off?
I mean, I'm sure they're up there, but we don't get any complaints about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Then they put the sign up, you're not allowed to go up there anymore.
But most of this is just settling, it's not made,
Oh,
you know,
yeah.
from
No.
guys
It's just
ripping.
It's settling.
ripping
It's not unique to us either. It happens
Ripping it
everywhere.
up.
Good,
Yeah, so it's necessary to recap and close the Plaistow landfill.
fix the cap.
Fix, and as required by law, because it's required by law, is it not? It's not just because we feel like we want to do it, we have to do it.
Not so much
Not-
law as regulations. You
By,
can look at the
required by
regulations.
regulation then, right?
So New Hampshire DES is allowed to promulgate regulations under the law.
Yep.
So the law gives DES the right to say, you need to fix the cap.
But they have not done that right now.
They have not officially sent us a letter.
So officially, we could just leave this alone and get to the point where DES says, now you have to fix it.
They're gonna come knocking.
Correct.
It's
So
not
we are basically doing this as a
proactively.
proactive approach to,
And you can say the same thing about the salt shed, because sooner or later, the EPA is gonna come down on everybody that
Correct.
does not have their salt covered.
Right.
And contained, so.
Correct.
I mean,
So it's another proactive. So if you
Right.
wanted to add proactive, it is not swaying.
swaying.
no.
So you could add proactive to the one for the salt shed.
Right.
And you could add proactive to the one for the landfill closure.
Because it's already a concern at the current salt shed that salt's leaching to the ground because it doesn't really contain it.
Have you
as
seen it
should.
lately? Have you seen it like this lately?
Right,
Yeah.
it's leaning. Actually, most of these warrant articles are proactive.
Yes, they are. But we've already talked about this. You want my
Sure,
suggested
thank you.
wording for the
Yep,
one elderly one we already discussed? All right. Any other comments or discussions on any of the warrant articles as written?
so I'll try to make these edits and send everybody a copy to some of them this week.
Greg, will you make sure I get one? I never got it.
Absolutely. Yep.
You sent it to us, you didn't send it to Beth.
Well, I wasn't told
Okay.
to, I would have been happy to
I
send it.
didn't look at the whole list.
Yeah,
Yeah, I just printed mine out, I had mine printed out only because I needed to, I wanted to mark it up.
yep.
All right, okay, then we're moving on to the next discussion, which is discussion on status of the lighting contract, which I'm assuming is, what's going on with that?
So today I received an email, and we had meetings previously with the contractor for the lighting contract, and we were told, well, let me start over. I'd like to explain a story so that if somebody's looking in for the first time. So there was an original discussion about changing the lights in town to LED. There was an original contract that said that they were going to start in September and they were going to finish by December, and it had to do with getting a rebate from Unitel. Then there was, the contractor asked if they could extend the contract past December, and and our concern was about the rebate and for the value of the lights that would cost to, that Unitel would write off. And then they did not get back to us, the contractor, right away, and then there was a concern that once it rolled into the new year, right now, that we were going to be in jeopardy of losing our rebate from Unitel and the value of the writing off of the lights. And so we had a meeting proactively with them before the end of the year, and they assured us that they would give us something in writing to say that we wouldn't lose the rebate and the value write-off from Unitil. And as of today, I saw communications, and there were emails, but I don't have anything in writing to say that we're not gonna lose the rebates, or we're gonna not be in jeopardy for the write-offs. So it's, it's a long story, but we were told one thing, and then we were asked to extend it, and we were promised we wouldn't lose anything, and then we had another meeting to say, you need to put all this in writing so that we don't lose anything, because that's what you told us, and we still don't have anything in writing.
Didn't we extended that till March, right? The end of March or
No,
April?
you extended it past December 31st into the new year, and it was thought that they would get it done by March.
I thought we put a date on it.
Not to exceed like March.
March, okay.
Right,
All right.
right. But, we're January, and every time we have asked for something, we haven't got anything back. And we sat in the room with the chairman, we sat in the room, were you there? The Vice Chairman, were you there in the room for that?
I was
Maybe
in this
not.
room.
Okay, but, we had Dee's been the point person. I'm not trying to talk negatively, but, when you're told one thing and you don't get it, you start wondering. So that's the status right now.
Yeah, we were told at a Board of Selectmen meeting that they would honor the difference if Unitil didn't.
They said it right
honor
here.
They did,
They did.
Yep.
but it's better to get it in writing.
And we've told them to give it in writing. I was supposed to have it in writing, and they sit in the office and tell me they're gonna give it to me in writing, and we get emails they're gonna give us, that they're supposed to, and we don't get it in writing. So, the contractor sat right here to the board and told you guys what they were gonna do.
Yes,
They
you were
haven't
here.
done it. And let's be clear, they haven't done it.
You're just not gonna enter into a contract with them until they get you the information, right? Or do we have to?
Well, we've signed a contract with them, and then we've agreed to extend it, that we would not be in jeopardy. But,
To meet, right.
yeah,
Yeah, we did, we agreed to extend it on the condition we weren't in jeopardy of losing.
I mean, I think
Yeah.
if we go to court and have to litigate it, we've done our due diligence.
Yeah.
But, we're January, I don't have anything. You're asking me the status, I'm telling you the status. Status unknown.
And still no dates of when they're going to start the work? Sure like to have that.
Status is unknown. I don't think they're gonna start working.
They will work during the winter.
Right, but you're not gonna allow them to work until we find out about the
Well,
rebate.
it's the rebate.
Right.
But I will say this, what I said to them in my office with Dee is that you will hold us harmless, so that, in other words, we're not gonna be out the rebate, we're not gonna be out the value. And they said, okay, and we said, give that to us in writing.
Yeah.
Here we are.
Yes.
Basically saying they'd be responsible to pay us the rebate
It
and the
indemnifies
value.
us.
Right.
Correct.
No wonder why we haven't got it in writing. Right.
But, I didn't start this thing with the lights. This was the Energy Committee, this was the board,
Sounds like, yeah. It is what it is until we get the information that we need.
It is. Okay, since we're talking
And
about.
I asked them to come here to last meeting and to this meeting, and they did not want to sit here to explain this to you.
So are they in jeopardy of violating their end of the contract?
I think they already have.
I don't know what our options are, though.
Are there any penalties for them?
Well, nothing's going to happen between now and the next meeting, so we can see.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
No, keep us up to date.
I wouldn't jump to it because obviously
Yeah.
they have until there's a date in March.
Yeah.
And obviously, I don't think by what we're hearing, they're not gonna start working because it appears that by them telling Mark that,
Yep.
they're gonna be responsible for the rebate and for whatever else.
Yeah. And they're not saying they're not going to honor it.
Right.
So,
So, and then you don't wanna start all over again because how much money have we put out?
let's see where it goes. Okay, well, we're talking about utilities and whatever. The double pole thing. Any progress on that? I'm saying probably no.
No.
And we discussed double taxing the poles for everyone they leave double,
We discussed that.
but we didn't actually direct you to do so?
No.
No, we didn't.
Well, I'll entertain if someone has a motion to direct the town manager to double tax them unless they correct the situation. If someone wants to make that motion.
We get, what, 6 months before the next tax bill?
Well, I think we've talked about it. We haven't given the town manager the direction to do so. I don't know what the decision's gonna be.
You got till April 1st, so whatever poles are in the ground that are double would be taxed as of April 1st, under that theory. I don't think anybody's ever done that before, but clearly, waiting 5 years and calling people up and them giving you the runaround, I don't know how long it's gonna last.
Mark, who do we tax? Is it Unitil Electric, or is it,
I think
what's
that there's.
Consolidated Communications? or-
There's one tax bill to the utility, and then they subrogate to the other people on the pole.
Okay.
But of course, the utility, and I won't throw any company names out, but the utility that gets the tax bill may in fact be off of the pole, what's remaining, because they're in different stages. They come off the top, and then they come off, again and again, and maybe there's one connection up there that's not the utility, it's somebody else, and then there's other poles that are just cut off, and they're just below, there's nothing on them, and they're just there. We've brought it to everybody's attention.
Do you want Plaistow to be the guinea pig and tax them, or how much work is it? I mean, I'm not gonna vote for it unless you say, unless you're for the
Well,
workload.
I think we could get a legal opinion from the people that work closely with taxing the utilities to give us a legal opinion if that would be worthwhile to do. And I would also say that they could probably come up with a sort of a class action, because there's other communities that might be interested in signing on to that. I mean, the whole thing is that it's a nuisance, it's an eyesore, and it's a danger.
But what are we talking about in terms of tax revenue?
I don't think it's huge, but it's.
Let's say it's let's say it's $100.
But we've been talking about double poles in this town for the 3 years I've been here.
I know.
And those poles were here before.
No, we haven't. I'm not kidding you.
It's crazy. They're in the middle of our sidewalks. Now, they're not even ADA compliant if they were, because of the pole in the middle of the sidewalk. It's a safety concern because of where they've left stuff. And it's a matter of, are we gonna keep getting slapped around, or are we gonna actually take action? I mean, maybe it's time to take action and do something.
I think you gotta weigh the cost of attorney's fees and looking into, getting a legal opinion or
And
whatever.
is it really worth our while? I mean, is it really worth our while to do
Whatever
this?
avenue Mark's gonna take,
Yep.
he's gonna have to pay to get somebody's legal opinion.
Well, I'm just saying,
Is
look-
it worth the $100 that we're gonna get from taxation
I'll think-
to spend, Plaistow's taxpayers hard-earned money?
Yeah.
I mean,
Well, I don't-
eventually, they're gonna
Yeah.
come down, because people, you see them out here all the time working on them, eventually, they are gonna come down.
Well, they just keep adding more of them, is what they've been doing.
Yeah, they do.
This is all,
Oh,
now they got
are.
new
I
ones,
mean,
the
but
double poles.
I mean,
They're not coming down, they're going up.
Yeah.
well, I think the Consolidated was out here over the long weekend, and they were taking off their lines. Electric is already off to the new poles. I mean, I know I talked to a guy up from Unitil Electric and Gas, that it's a long process. I mean, there's a gazillion people involved, but how much workload more do you want to give the town manager?
Well, I'm saying if Unitil has the pole, we tax Unitil, let's say, and Unitil's probably charging the other people who aren't moving their lines to use their poles. I mean, they're not letting them use their poles for
It's not
free.
gonna cost them
I
anything.
know, but the thing is, we should
There's
get a
no-
legal opinion.
So
There's
let
no
me,
incentive.
let me go to a utility expert firm, and I got somebody in mind, and then I'll run this by them and see if maybe they can generate enough interest so that the burden wouldn't be on Plaistow. Maybe there could be other towns that they usually send out a letter and say, okay, we're thinking about doing this. Are you interested in signing on? So I could do that.
Yeah, because we've been doing this for years. It's gonna continue for the next 10 years, 20 years, because every time some pole gets changed, they do it again, and they do it again.
If we get to do back taxes, for the last 10 years, it might be worth our while.
Let's find out what we can
But
actually do, rather than
Even if you
talk
do
about it.
tax them, they're going to pass the tax burden on to the people who are on their lines.
Or they're gonna remove the poles because they don't want to fight the battle.
Right, whichever, it's the objective is get rid of the double poles and whatever. It's not about generating revenue It's to incentivize them
Well,
to
on the
fix the problem.
positive side, if a car hits a double pole, it's less likely to crack, so.
Well, there, a lot of those things are just, the old pole is hanging off the new pole, if you look at
Believe me, have
them.
you seen my car lately?
They're scary. They just kind of put a little strap and a bolt in there, kind of one's hanging off the other to keep it from falling down. But the thing is, the objective is to get it to stop and to get rid of them. I'm not worried about generating revenue.
Okay.
The financial part of it is just to incentivize them to,
Well, that's the whole
Take
point, is that if you want to motivate them to do something, to actually come in and take care of it, it's got to hurt enough to make them
right.
want to
So
come.
let's look into the legality of hurting them, and we can get together with other communities, because it's not just our community, it's happening everywhere.
Let's just give her-
So I think, Mark, you have
Utility pole in front of the middle,
our direction? Yep. Tthink you.
6100.
And that's an agreement with you, that Mark look into
Yep.
what we can do.
Yeah, as long as it ain't costing the taxpayers anything,
Yeah.
right now. You already said, so
Yeah.
we can move on.
Versus the cost of a brand new car.
Yeah, we've been kind of kicking it down for years, and nothing ever gets done, so.
I
gotta-
say we
gotta do
kick the
something.
can a little more.
No,
Just for 5 more years.
no. I'm not one of those, I don't like kicking
all
things
be
down the
done by
road.
then.
They come to, they burn somebody later on. It's a problem, it needs to be fixed. All right, okay, so we got that status. I guess we're, town manager's report.
So before we do that, if you wouldn't mind.
Sure.
Because I was thinking, I was going to talk to Mark about this after the meeting, but I think it may be worthwhile for all of us to hear about it. We voted on encumbering certain amounts, and to my understanding, encumbrance, the way it was explained to it, is that there was a signed contract or signed legal liability that we are basically setting aside that money to be able to spend it after the first of the year. Is that correct? We added the scuba item on there. That would have normally gone to a revolving trust fund, wouldn't it have?
No,
If we
CIP.
put a warrant
It
article
would
out?
have,
CIP fund.
what's happening every year, there was a warrant article established in 2015 for SCBA. There was an initial deposit of $33,000 and some odd dollars. It was increased to $44,000 over the last few years. There was an intent in 2020 to purchase a bundle of SCBA equipment.
Okay.
And then to reduce down the CIP from, in year 2021 to 2041 or 51. And it was the long-term savings to replace the equipment 20 or 30 years from now. So what happened is that during this process of the budget, as you know, there was a consensus to reduce down the amount of warrant articles. So we looked at the ones, and some of them have been just, eliminated.
Right.
A lot of them have been kept on there, but funded from the general fund unreserved balance. The whole concept is to reduce down the amount that would be raised and appropriated through taxation. So this one here, because we knew that there was going to be, we were told that there was going to be a purchase in 2020, so there was the saving all this money for 6 years, including 2020, because there's 147,000 that's in that account now, and there was going to be another 44 added. So the thought was, because we had a surplus in 2019, that what we would do is just fund that final payment for the SCBA in 2019 with 2019 dollars, and then do what we were going to do, so it wouldn't show up on the ballot.
So I did understand that at the last meeting.
Right.
The problem that I had was, normally for something to be encumbered.
Right.
It has to have a contract
Right.
to purchase.
So-
And this is not a contract to
Okay.
purchase, it's a plan to purchase.
Right. So let me clarify that.
So can we actually, the question is, can we actually encumber
Well,
that money?
My recommendation, along with the consultation with the finance director, and I met with the fire chief and the deputy fire chief, because I wanted to know the status of it. So we learned some new information today. And we were, the process for the fire chief's been difficult to get here, and, if he was here sooner, perhaps we would have had some kind of concrete. So we did not get a signed contract.
Okay.
So my recommendation is going to be, is to revisit the encumbrance and take off the SCBA
Okay.
off of the encumbrance, go back to some number and put a warrant article in for 2020 for the CBA, whether it's 15,000 or 44,000.
Right.
Because we don't have a signed contract.
Okay,
We were hoping to have one, but we didn't. We also found out that there was a grant that they put in for SCBA equipment in 2018, but we have no paperwork to show that we're going to get any grant for SCBA.
Okay.
There's another complicated problem with SCBA right now. There's competition out there between a couple of major manufacturers, and there's a trend that people are going to switch from one brand to another. So what the fire chief wanted to do was set up a committee to evaluate whether they should go with A or B, because it's a long-term purchase. And what they don't want to do is buy a whole bunch of equipment for 150, 200,000, and then realize, oh, we shouldn't have bought that. We should have bought B instead of A.
right.
So they need to do a comprehensive investigation and make a recommendation before there's a purchase. Because whatever they purchase, they want it to be compatible, and they don't want to buy something that's not compatible, because that's going to create a different problem.
Okay.
So I got your point. We thought we were going to have a signed contract. We don't.
Okay.
So we're going to ask you to take that encumbrance off. Now, if this board, the three of you, want to take that off tonight, you can do that.
Is it 103?
It's at what?
Is it a number exactly 103?
You know what, it should be in your minutes.
It's the difference between 148 and 106,
Right, so it's in your minutes.
42,000.
Why can't I find my, okay, here we go.
42,600? Is that what it
Yes,
is?
so, yeah.
2,400, page 3.
400.
So if you subtract off the 42,4
And that brings it
from the
back to,
148,
right, that brings it back to 106.
is that, I didn't do the math, so I'll take it. So it's gonna be 106,424,
Okay.
47.
My concern was that we had all this documentation about signed contracts.
Yep.
And this seemed to be thrown on at the last minute, and we didn't seem to go into much discussion about, do we have a contract for this? So I assume there was some other obligation or some other justification to make this encumbered. I didn't get a chance to look at the RSA,
Right.
but I'm told the RSA was very clear that it had to be a,
No, well, actually, I read the RSA again today. And it's actually very, very generic.
Okay.
It suggests that you get a signed contract or other documentation.
Right.
So it's not specific that it has to be a signed contract. But we're not arguing that.
Oh, okay.
We want to defer to, let them tell us what they need, put it back on the warrant, and let's just be done with it. What we were trying to do was work with the board and the budget committee to accomplish what they wanted to do.
got it. No, totally understand.
So we can legally unencumber something? Because we already encumbered it.
Sure.
Of course you can.
Okay, I just want to make sure that was.
So the
it's
new
kinda
total
weird.
would be
We never did that.
106,424.47?
Correct.
Oh, so
See, that item was.
4 is not in it then?
It
We're
was,
going to take it out, you're going to
Oh,
effectively
you
take it out.
guys already
last
took it
meeting.
out?
Well, no,
No.
you put it in,
It was
but we're going to
added
ask you to
before.
take it out.
no, it was added at the last meeting. You don't have it written down because it was added to that.
It's in the minutes
Yeah,
of the last
I make a
meeting.
motion, we remove 42,400 for the SCBA for the fire department,
From the encumbrances.
from the encumbrances.
I'll second that. Any more discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passes 3-0-0. And we also going to need to have a vote to add the warrant article back into,
No, we don't know yet.
We don't know.
Warrant article for what?
well, we took
For the
for
SCBA.
the SCBA.
Oh, yeah, so, I'm going to give you my honest opinion. After researching this whole thing today and really digging into it, they don't even have a purchase really lined up right now. So there's a philosophical question. Do you want to continue funding something, and we don't know what it's going to cost and what company you're going to go with, so that you keep the voters apprised of that this is an annual cost going forward? Or do you skip a year, and does that cause a problem for the voters saying, well, we skipped a year last year, so why do we need to do it this year? So it's a philosophical question. I don't have the answer.
Can we still put a warrant article at the next meeting? Or does it have to be
Yes.
tonight?
Yeah, I think that'd be about it, though, is the last meeting.
So
next meeting.
why don't Greg or somebody, or
Yeah.
just
Give
work
us
on a
Give
warrant?
us a new warrant
Give us a
article for
warrant
next
article for
meeting.
that.
Yeah, so that we're not just making up numbers and wording.
Yeah, and there'll be 4 of us next week, I believe,
Right.
so.
Okay, so you got that on my list of things to do. I'll draft that up tomorrow.
Cool. Thank you, Mark.
Along with the taxation on a double phone pole.
It seemed like we were kind of taking a different route than usual.
Well, don't forget, what were we trying to do? We're trying to accomplish what the board and the
Right.
budget committee wanted, which was a reduced amount of warrant articles and reduced amount of taxation. So it's all in the spirit of that. If we're trying to do that, that warrant article would just show up like it has for the past 5 years.
Right.
But we took it out of, but in principle, we kind of took it out of the voters' hands by doing the encumbrance rather than the warrant article. Not that it always passes, we know that.
Correct.
So it's just a matter of perception, I guess, or whatever you want to call it.
It
But
was
still,
no-
put it in the hands of the voters.
There's no underhandedness here.
No.
It was just to try to expedite the purchase
Yeah.
and put less on for the warrants, which is significant because we took up the whole alphabet last year.
We did.
We didn't, I don't think we're taking up the whole alphabet this year.
Good.
Well, the trend's going good. The warrant articles, I see, they're going to be going down and down every year in the future because all the big projects are going to be done, the major projects.
Well,
Yeah. We know the landfill's coming up.
no, you gotta be
Yeah,
aware that, sooner or later, vehicles are gonna be needed.
Yeah.
The rust problem with the highway department, fire department, police department. I mean, we are saving with the
maintenance, yeah.
outside detail
The
fund.
major buildings and things like that, that's
But
going
you're
to be
still
done.
gonna, it costs money to run a business.
Yeah.
The town of Plaistow is a business, it's a corporation, so you need to fund it to keep it running. And not surprise the voters to go, oh, hey,
I'm talking about
So
the
that's-
big projects, like new highway building, new safety complex, those
Well,
things are,
I think
yeah.
Mark's done a pretty good job taking
Yeah.
that out of the unassigned fund balance
Right.
and,
And-
working with the, so.
and we're not looking at those things now for a long time to come.
Right.
So, very long time.
Yeah, but I think what Steve's
Yeah.
trying to say is that, the budget for the town just can't keep on going down.
Oh, it won't. I'm just
You
talking
know,
about the
You've got to
new
still
warrant
provide
article, yeah.
services, and you still need to fund. To your point, the big budget articles
Yeah.
are probably, we don't have a whole lot of big ones in front of us. We
Exactly.
just have that landfill probably in front of us right now.
Then we'd be more concerned with operating budget, vehicle replacements, maintenance,
Right, but you
things
still
like
need,
that.
you still need to.
That's gonna happen.
But you still need to fund your capital reserves.
Yeah.
You can't keep cutting them every year, because all of a sudden, if we're all gone and new boards are here, new town managers are here, and all of a sudden it's like, hey, we gotta buy a $200,000 plow for the highway department.
Yeah, that's
You don't
what we
wanna
have
be-
a
You don't
CIP
wanna
committee.
be killing,
A $1.2 million tower truck.
Right.
I couldn't think of,
Yeah.
I had highway trucks on my mind, but, right, or a tower truck, or.
That's why we
or-
have a CIP program to anticipate those things.
Correct.
To my point.
It's gonna
So,
happen.
so you gotta have those warrant articles to save for that.
Oh, yeah.
But so either you save for it, so you have the money when you need it, or you don't save, and then you got a big ticket item, you gotta come up with the money.
Oh, as we're going in that path, what is the status on the tanker truck that we replaced and we haven't sold?
I have an answer for you.
Thank you.
The status is it's still at the fire station, and it is facing out the back door, and it is the primary vehicle that goes to mutual aid to another town. It is a tanker truck that is working. It's low miles. The value of that vehicle, if we were to try to just get rid of it, would be very low, and it's still functioning. That's part A. Part B is on this, the insurance, the ISO rating for people's house insurance. So they look at your response time, your distance to the firehouse, they look at what you have for equipment. If that vehicle goes, whether it goes for cheap money to sell it, or whether we sell it for bigger dollars to another fire department, we drop in the ISO category because that is a piece of equipment that helps with the ISO rating for the homeowner's insurance. So it's a conundrum. Is it, and I'm gonna throw a figure out, if you sold it for $25,000, yeah, you get $25,000 that goes into, the general fund, but what effect does that have on the town ISO rating
Insurance
for
rates.
everybody?
Right.
So you're saying when we had one truck, our ISO rating was way worse?
We have a better ISO rating by having those 2 trucks.
And it actually has changed?
Yes, yes. But don't forget, ISO rating is not a government agency, it's an insurance.
Right.
It's an insurance model that they use to set rates. We can't influence it. It's done by the insurance people.
Right.
So,
There are things like, there's a drainage pond next to my house. And when the fire department put a hydrant there, my insurance rate went down because I'm less than 50 feet from that hydrant.
I don't think a lot of people,
And that's set by the insurance because it's risk. They're setting risk.
I don't think a lot of people know that, because that's the first thing I do is call my insurance company and tell them, hey, I'm looking at a fire hydrant across the street. Oh, you do?
Yeah,
There
exactly.
you go.
right.
Well, I got some phone calls about the ISO
I
rating.
can totally
from insurance
understand having
companies,
an
so-
additional.
Right, but we're not the
an
arbiter
additional
for the
truck.
ISO ratings. That's
Yeah.
between a homeowner and their insurance
Right,
company.
but
All I
we got
can say is,
involved because
generally
they were saying it
speaking-
went bad.
Generally speaking, it's determined by the insurance company, and you want to know that you have a good ISO rating. Believe it or not, and I did the statistics on this, and they give you all the places in New Hampshire. We're very high on the ISO rating, and I won't use other communities' names, but we're higher than other communities around us that have much bigger fire departments. And the reason why is because those other communities don't have a firehouse within a certain amount of miles to their home.
Right.
Because of the situation of the central location of your public safety complex, and that the perimeter is very small in the miles, that one firehouse satisfies that requirement.
Right.
Then you look at equipment, and then you look at response times. So there's a formula, there's a matrix that they use. So it's a long-winded answer to what do we do, what's the status with the fire truck? My recommendation is, I think for the taxpayers, for their insurance purposes, I think it's better to leave that truck right there, and it's a vehicle that goes out of town for mutual aid instead of sending you a new one, right? I think it's probably a good deal to keep that truck for right now.
And how much is it gonna cost to maintain it? And what happens when it's no longer serviceable? Now we're gonna be down to
That's a lot of what ifs.
two-tanker fire department?
That's a lot of what-ifs. Listen, if the insurance, if the repair to that truck is so excessive, we know what the answer is. We're not gonna fix it.
Right.
Or
But-
replace it?
Or replace it. So, if you go 15 years and you don't have a big bill, think about the ISO rating for the residents for 15 years.
Right.
Big savings.
Now, I get the ISO rating and all that, I just say it's not Plaistow's taxpayers' responsibility to subsidize mutual aid for other communities. So
Well-
there's two sides to that story.
Well, there's
The
all-
ISO part is, I understand that.
There's
But
three.
we're saving money, and the taxpayers are saving money.
Well, I said there was
so-
two sides to it.
Yeah,
I
but there's
understand the
actually,
ISO
But
part.
there's
mutual
three
aid
sides.
works
There's
the other
three
way.
sides. You haven't talked about another side.
Yeah.
Don't forget, every time we do mutual aid, that's a mutual aid that if we need, they come here too.
Yeah.
Right.
And you know what? They come here a lot. You may not know that. They come a lot. So I wouldn't argue about
No.
about
It's a good thing.
going out and coming back. We're all small towns, and we all do it. I don't think you measure it.
Right.
When you need help, you want everybody coming, and when they need help, they want us to go and we go. So
The
mutual aid's a good thing.
Symbiotic relationship.
Yeah.
We could not afford to have the same protection
No,
on either could in these other towns.
I buy into the ISO part and all that, I
Yeah.
buy into that. I just said it has to be said, that
Right.
there's two sides to it.
Three sides.
Okay, I agree, three sides, and then we'll leave that alone.
Probably a fourth side.
Yep.
Now the town manager report?
Now the town manager's report.
Just helping you get moving along.
Thank you.
So, in your package, there's new information from the state that I received from State Representative Bob Harb. It has to do with election officials, and they pass bills, and it's about providing accessibility in the ballot, Americans with disabled. So I passed it on to you, I passed it on to the election officials. It talks about a lawsuit. I believe it was in Concord. Yeah, it was in Concord. I read it as much as I could quickly to just try to understand it. So we received that, and hopefully our election officials will make all of our voting consistent with the Americans with Disability Act. We did appropriate some money in the recent years to get some of the accessibility things that we needed. So we're going to try to comply with the law. We're going to comply with the law, I think. I have a resignation of the trustee of the trust funds I forwarded to the board, and that is from Jill Center, and it is about Kara Ann Gilroy, and her question is to just leave it, wait till the March town meeting to do it, and they have a quorum of trustees until then, so I just wanted to bring that to the board's attention. The department heads are working on submitting their reports for the annual town report. The open house for the Public Works Garage is January 25th and 26th, which is a Saturday and a Sunday. The highway department is, the offices are functional at the new building. There is an occupancy permit. We're having people in there daily to do punch lists. The guys are in the garage, getting the garage ready to move all of their equipment and tools in. So it's a slow process, but they're performing their highway department duties. If there's a snowstorm or whatever they got to do, they're filling in, putting plywood on the walls and doing some final touches and some painting and setting up some shelves. And there'll be a migration of the equipment over, and there'll be a fair amount of equipment in the new building for the open house. And there's things up at the old building, like the old compressor that's single phase, that we're just gonna leave there, and we're gonna buy a 3-phase compressor. So we're not gonna be moving a lot of the old equipment that's antiquated there. And then the new building must be ADA compliant, which it is. We're gonna have our insurance company, Primex, that's gonna come down to visit us again. And our, and the Department of Labor will probably come down. So we're making sure that the building is safe and so forth. So it's a slow move, it's not a hard move. And then, of course, in the spring, we can start doing some of that paving, rough binder paving around the building because the weather closed in on us. So we did remove the earth and pack the earth around it, so there'll be some settling. And I still have to put gutters on the outside of the building, but it's not optimum to put it on. But the snow guards up on the roof are working right now.
Okay.
Because there's not a big sheet coming off the roof. Probably gonna put a couple awnings on over the doors, but, everything's going good. The building's operating good. We're getting up to speed.
Great.
I have to put some kitchen cabinets in, but I figured I'd wait for that to be last. We're trying to do the punch list on all the contractors right now. So if you haven't been over there, I think everybody will be pretty happy. And the cost came in at $95 a square foot. It's really a $2.5 million building that the town built for under $1 million. So,
Excellent.
there's some savings there. And hopefully, the 3rd phase, the salt shed will be approved, and then the panels will go on, and it will produce electricity for the garage and other town buildings, and we'll be able to store the salt there. So it's still a project that we're hoping to move on to phase 3.
Yep.
So that's pretty much it for, do you have anything, Beth, that's outstanding right now?
No, I think we're good.
Yeah, it's been relatively quiet through the holidays. We received the delivery of the 2019 Dodge Charger and the 2019 F-150. Those vehicles are going out to be the equipment installed and striped. They're not on the road yet. Those are two patrol vehicles. As you know, we've dropped the fleet down from 18 to 10. Of course, there is 6 over in the outside detail fleet. So that's good. The fire vehicle is back from the paint shop, and that's waiting to go out to get striped. That's the car 2. That's waiting to get striped and getting the radio equipment and lights put in that. So that is happening this month. So the new chief's on board, fire chief, and he's over there with training right now from 7 to 9. So we're moving forward.
Excellent.
There is one thing
Yes.
that's been set, public hearing for budget.
So the public hearing for budget, for the 2020 budget is January 14th here in the Grand Room. at 7 PM for those watching. So that's for the budget. And at that time, the Budget Committee had asked for a presentation from the fire and the police about how they're able to provide the same level of service or better levels of service in light of some of the challenges they've had. They've had challenges with personnel and filling positions. They've had challenges with, response times. They've had challenges and how they've been able to make some changes, which they came to the board, the fire department did, and that the concern is that there's been no reduction of services. In fact, the services have improved. And so the Budget Committee wanted a presentation on the 14th, and both chiefs are working on that presentation now. So that's what they want. So there's nothing bad going on. It's just that to reassure the voters that even though they're going to be looking at a 2020 budget, that it's less than the 19 budget, it's not reducing services for public safety. So that's what that budget presentation was designed for, as I understand it. No one's told me anything different.
Is that it?
That's it.
All right, thank you. Did you get the contract proposals for the assessors for values anew?
Yes.
You got those? Did you get to look at them?
Yeah, but it wasn't being on the agenda tonight.
So.
Okay.
I can speak to that. I met with the chairman before she left, and of course, Selectman Blinn is also on vacation. So, you're the Board of Assessors, and you've always said that when it comes to a major decision, that you wanted to have the 5 of you there. So that's why it's not on the agenda.
Well, you didn't let me finish. I just want to make sure he had it.
I didn't think I interrupted you.
I was just saying, you got the information.
Right.
And I'm saying, even though last meeting you said we were going to put it off for one meeting, I say it's not good because we need a full board for a big decision like that.
Right.
That's all I was going to
Yeah,
say.
so I think that the full board's going to be here for February 3rd.
Yes.
Correct.
So that's when the full board should probably decide on their values anew, because it's a full board. So
But
we,
I think I think the Cochrane proposal expires before that.
yeah, but I read that. Well, they self-restricted themselves
They
to
did.
say that it's only good for 30 days. I don't know why they did that.
I don't
But,
either.
that's like forcing you to make a decision within 30 days, and if the full board isn't here, that's not right.
Well, that was what my thought was when I went through both of these proposals was, if it's this week or next week, if you wait any longer,
Well, I don't think it's
We're gonna
fair
be
to the
voting
board.
on- we're gonna be voting
The 3 members
on
are going
one.
to make a decision like that.
right,
Yeah.
right. But I mean, if we had, minimally, if we had 4,
You could see, so you only got two proposals,
correct.
which is consistent with every time I put out an RFP.
Yeah.
You don't get a lot of people.
No.
So
Well, we got 2.
you got 2.
Yep.
So,
Even with
Okay.
the new software, we only got 2.
and one was from the software provider.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
So I just wanted to bring that forward, that we said before we were going to do it the next week. The reason we're not doing it is we'd rather have,
Got it.
it's better to have a full board.
Yeah.
That's
No,
it.
I knew that.
I agree.
All right.
Got an email.
All right.
Yeah.
You have, Steve, go ahead for your report.
I really don't have a report, but I do have some information. After over 30 years of public service to the town of Plaistow, as a police officer, planning board member, and selectman, as of tonight, I tender my resignation as I'll be moving to Haverhill as I begin a new and exciting chapter in my life. Don't anybody smile at once.
No smiling.
I'm only kidding. Why, it's bittersweet that I stepped down from my position as a selectman. I'm proud of the nearly 4 decades of service. I gave my full measure to my duties and responsibilities as a public servant and public official, and I am indeed proud of what we have accomplished for this and future generations of Plaistonians. It's been a unique honor to serve with this board, Mark, and with former selectmen, such as John Sherman, Buzzy Blinn, Dan Poliquin, Michelle Curran, Tammy Bergeron, and many more, Norm Major. I greatly appreciate the opportunity to help and lead this town with former town officials, town managers, who cared and care deeply for this town and create a truly talented and dedicated team of town officials who define the vision of Plaistow for the new safety complex, potable water system, and many of the critical investments for Plaistow. I'll truly miss my associations with good citizens of Plaistow who care so much about good government and holding those in position accountable. I'm proud of the important work we completed during my tenure as a selectman and on the planning board, and will always pride myself on getting things done that matter to the citizens of Plaistow. The town of Plaistow deserves to return to a strong, high-performing organization with a well-deserved reputation for outstanding achievement. While I'm sorry that I'll be leaving at this critical time, I trust that there will be good people who will step up and fight for these values. In closing, thank you for allowing me to serve the town of Plaistow, and I will forever be grateful for this honor. I look forward to seeing many of you at future Old Home Days as we celebrate the greatest town in America, which is Plaistow. God bless Plaistow.
Thank you for your service, Steve.
You, Steve?
Well, you guys can, I said at the end, you can shake my hand.
Where about the end? Not gonna forget. You're up.
We've been spending a lot of time with budget meetings. Things are getting down to the wire. We have approved almost a lot of things. We have made changes. We brought the Board of Selectmen to be in sync with the Budget Committee, which I'm very happy that we are able to accomplish that. Just trying to survive the holiday season. We've been doing a lot of work on the go-between. Seems like there's a lot of nights when there's nothing on TV. I'm working on the voter's guide or whatever, but that's part of the fun of serving as a selectman. And I agree with Steve. There's a wonderful group of very, very talented and very, very sincere people in this town. And it makes the job of being a selectman very, very enjoyable. Thank you.
We got that diversity of different opinions, and we work together, and we come out with an outcome in the end.
Right.
Okay, that it?
That's it.
Okay, mine's short too. I did go to the highway garage Friday, and we looked at all the progress that was being made, and it's definitely progress. And I just want to remind people of going to a Wednesday on January 8th, going to the Rockingham Planning Commission meeting and at the Hampton Academy Community Room. And the reason I'm bringing up the location is there's going to be a discussion of the governor's plan to address New Hampshire's housing shortage, which I know a lot of people, they don't realize that New Hampshire has a big housing shortage. And I read the plan. It looked pretty good as far as in writing. And so they are public meetings, and if people want to go and hear what the discussions are, there'll be representatives from the governor's office there. If these are things of concern, the public is welcome to come to these meetings.
I'm planning to attend, so
Okay, so
you're there.
that's the only reason I'm bringing that up, because it's a big concern in here, and it concerns a lot of regulation changes and getting rid of obstacles and doing smart things, they were proposing putting plans in to help communities in their planning and things like that, which it's complicated. It's not as easy as people think it is, those issues. So that's all I've got to say. Anything else, any other things you want to bring up at the meeting? Then I'll adjourn this meeting at 8:09.